Welcome back to the podcast. Um, and I wanted to take some time on this episode to go over some things I've learned in my business over the last couple of years. Sure, I've told the story before of how in January of 21, I had a fully staffed legal team of 8 lawyers and support staff. And between January of 21 and March of 21, I went from a full staff down to 2 lawyers and 1 support staff. And then from all of 21, 22, and half of 23, I went back to trying to restaff, redo things so they'll work. It was a very unstable time, people coming and going. I couldn't get people to stay. And a big part of that was lack of clarity, and that was my poor leadership. So one of the first things I did, and there's another podcast on this already about not managing people, managing processes, and having a complete, thorough, and clear process for everything that you do, everything that your people do. So that way there's clear accountability. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And that's a huge part of running a successful business. And so we had our processes in place and everything was working. But people weren't meeting their goals that their requirements of what they had set for them. So as a law firm, part of what we do is sell time. And you in the construction business, part of what you sell is time too, because you sell labor. Same thing. So we sell time, our legal expertise, drafting things, solving issues, all of that is what we sell. And so one of the big things is you have to put it into our system so it can make it onto a bill. So you have to put in your time. And for somebody who's never had to put their time in before, it can be quite a challenging task to document what you do all day. But we give people time to ramp up to that. And so I was noticing that we have a billable requirement of 7 hours a day that you have to meet. And I was noticing that, and according to my processes, you got to go check and make sure that you're meeting those. And what I was noticing is at the end of a billing cycle, when the bills went out, nobody was meeting their required billables. Nobody was taking upon themselves to go check, right? And so it wasn't getting done. And you can hold people accountable and do write-ups and stuff like that, but that makes people come and go. So one of the things we implemented is a daily timesheet, right? That goes out to everybody on the legal team that says, hey, this is how many hours you're billed. This is where you're supposed to be. This is where you need to be. And then we could handle it while there was still time to fix it, right? So there's still time to change it. And so coming up with this daily reporting was a substantial change in the business, right? Because I could make sure that everybody was meeting the time that they need to put in, and I can make sure that if they weren't, it was corrected before the time period ends. And so what gets measured gets managed, right? And so having these daily reports was huge in the success of the firm and making sure everybody could put their hours in, which then makes it go on a bill, which then it'll get paid. And, the firm will do better. And as the firm does better, everybody else will do better. So having some type of reporting that you can measure when a project is going on, right? We had Eric on JobTread talk about job costing, and that in JobTread, you can look up daily reporting. What is this project costing me in materials, and what is it costing me in labor? And look at that on the daily, especially when if you look at it on the daily, you can see if you're over budget, under budget. You can make changes before the job is completed. So that way, you don't lose money. And that way it doesn't come to the end of the project and you're like, oh, wow, we spent way too much time on this project. I don't know what happened. Or, you see this issue coming down the road and you be like, hey, this issue was unforeseen. We need to do a change order and increase your contract price, right? And if you're watching it on the daily, you can change it while you still, when you still have time to affect change, as opposed to getting to the end of the project, which I still say you get to the end of the project and review everything to see how it went. But if you're watching it on the daily to say, you can make changes when it still matters before the job is done to try to make back some of the extra labor time or extra material costs, or like I said, a change order if you see something coming, if you're watching it on the daily, right? So there's reports in my business that I check daily, like, okay, what are the billables? What are we at? Where do we need to be? Who's short? What can we do? Let's go have a talk with them. Make sure everybody gets their time in. Does somebody else need some more work? We can move some work around, just to make sure that we're going to reach our revenue goals, right? At the end of the day, all this is about reaching revenue. Firm makes more money, so everybody who works here makes more money, and just staying on top of that. If you do something on a flat fee, are you making money on it? Make sure you look what your cost is. As much as we can, we try to do things on a flat fee and still make money on those, right? So the daily reports are huge to make sure that you're on top of everything while you still have time to affect change. And then monthly reporting, right? You should at least once a month look at your company's P&L and balance sheet, right? To see where you're at, to see where you're headed. How did this, overall month go? Did you have do you have a positive number on the bottom line or a negative? If it's negative, let's look into what happened. What are your expenses? QuickBooks makes it very easy if you want to drill into any of your categories and see what expenses are listed in there, and make sure that, if you guys have people who have company credit cards, make sure they have them sign something that is only for company charges, right? Have part of your handbook, and that you can deduct something that's not a company charge out of their paycheck. You have to have that all in writing before. You can't just do it at the last minute. So you're looking at your expenses. You're looking at your gross revenue for the month. How are sales? If sales are down, what can we do to bring them up? What can we do on social media? What can we do in marketing? Are we getting enough leads? How can we get more leads? So your monthly financials are a huge insight to how your company's doing and where it needs help. The things that you need to work on. Is it expenses? Is it bringing more leads in? Are we making money at the bottom line? You can have a bad month where you have a negative bottom line, but if that happens, let's dive into why, right? Why were we negative? What can we do to prevent that? Let's look at the different factors that make that happen. You are the most important part of your business. And so if you have like, I used to have a bad trait of not wanting to look at reports because you're afraid of what they were saying, like the ostrich approach. That's going to reflect down to everybody. If you're not paying attention, nobody else is, I promise you. And that's another thing as a business owner, that you can get into the habit of delegating and then not reviewing. Even if you delegate, you have to have check-ins, especially on the accounting side. It's not unreasonable to if you're to have books for the month before by the 15th of the next month, so you can see while you're still in the month that you're in, what happened the month before, and make changes accordingly. I think that's part of your job as a business owner, right? Your job is to keep the doors open, make sure you're making money, spending it wisely, and doing things to put back into your business to, hire more employees, do more jobs, all of those things. So all of that to say, ignoring the numbers can be death to a company. So there should be reports that you look at, like daily, like a job costing report. How is each job going? Is it over budget, under budget? If it's over, what can we do? Can we get a change order? How can we cut back? And then there's monthly reporting. How is the company doing as a whole, not financial? What's the gross revenue? What's the bottom line? And you got to look at all of these numbers as the business owner to make sure you're headed in the right direction. You got to set the vision, let everybody else know your vision, but then make sure we're taking steps to reach that vision, right? Goals are a great way to do that. Letting everybody in on the goals. You can check the podcast out that I did with Holly Green, specifically about how to set goals and how do we need to be very specific about those goals and how we measure if we're being successful. That's another measurement that we can report on, right? So most companies have revenue goals. You can look at gross revenue once a month. Growth goals, how many projects, did we do this month? How many do we want to do? Where do we want to get? And how are we going to get there? Once you set the goal, right, you can work backwards on how to get there. So guys, this is just a quick word about what report you should be looking at, how often, things that get measured, get managed, and just being on top of everything. So if you have any other ideas for show notes, for show ideas, reach out to me, send me an email, contact me on social media. I'm always looking for new topic ideas. If this is helpful, share it, let everybody know. Thanks.